Yep. Good morning. They called him the all-crushing Kant, and with good reason. Kant struck a distinction between faith and reason, saying that he had to limit reason in order to make room for faith. By that he meant that the belief that we have access to God, to the soul, to the world, some kind of world spirit, through reason, he found to be bankrupt. He anchored all of our knowledge in what is experiential. And he said things like God, self, and world do not have sensual, perceptual components of which we can be aware. Hence, God, self, and world are regulative ideas, meaning by that they are empty, but they function for us to organize human understanding and experience. So Kant begins to precipitate an anthropocentric viewpoint. We start from what we can know about the human agent in their knowing and their doing, and then build with an acute awareness of the limitations of what we can know. Freedom for Kant begins with the scrupulous use of reason and not making claims that extend beyond the bounds of reason. So, again, God, self, and world are empty ideas that we use to organize our thinking, but they tell us nothing about God. They tell us nothing about the self. They tell us nothing about the world. This is fundamentally important. And theoretically, we are left with a situation in which we can say nothing about matters religious, but practically, when we are in the world of our desire, we discover that it is possible for us, when inclined to act in a certain way, to act rather than by natural inclination. We can act morally. That is, we can make for ourselves a law, auto nomos. The big point for Kant is that the law, auto nomos, is self-given rather than God-given. When we give ourselves the law, when we act morally, or we propose to act morally, we are presuming that there is a God who knows the incentives of our hearts, and that there is a period of time, perhaps eternity, that will unfold, during which time the exercise of our wills will come to fruition in a moral deed. Kant is no fool. It doesn't mean that to will the good means it's going to happen tomorrow. It may take a long, long, long time. This is why he says that enlightenment is our exodus from self-incurred minority. It's the new religion. It is no longer believing what we're told by others, but it is to think for ourselves, to have the courage to think for ourselves. Now, Kant's no fool. He knows full well that if you are working in a church, or working at the YMCA, or working in a political office, you are bound by the constraints of those institutions to say certain things and not say certain things. This is what he means by the private use of reason. When we have distinctive tasks about which we are working, then we must observe the prescriptions on what we can say and what we cannot say. This is the private use of reason. The public use of reason, however, is the unfettered exploration of ideas. In other words, it is a domain of intellectual exploration that is free of censorship. This was a major issue for Kant. He was put under the threat of censorship himself, precisely for what he was saying about religion. But it is very important for you to grasp that what he's saying is, while in your role as a clergy person, you're bound by the constraints of the church, in your role as an intellectual, you can, in writings, in journals, in discourse that is purely intellectual, pursue fearlessly the ideas that you wish to explore without fear of a recrimination from any outside source. This is the basis of the modern university. Now, Kant thought that this could unfold gradually over time, and that we could begin to strike the distinction between moral theology and theological morality. Theological morality meant learning from the Bible or the church what you were supposed to do. And this would be someone else telling you what to do, and it would be your self-incurred minority. Moral theology, on the other hand, derives from the idea of the capacity to act according to a moral law and the assumptions built into that acting, that there is a God who knows the secrets of your heart, and that there is a sufficient amount of time to bring that moral act to conclusion. These are important distinctions. They shook up the world and were very much a reason for why Hamann called Kant the all-crushing Kant. Have a great discussion.